She has worked in helping to restore the Monet Gardens for the last 25 years. She's been traveling and speaking about her experience, and we are very excited that she is here today with us. And I'd like to now warmly welcome Elizabeth Murray.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you for coming in. Do you hear me? Good, good, I'm all turned on. Well, it is my honor to be here at the Mecca of photography. I live in Carmel, Monterey, California, and on the West Coast, Carmel likes to think of themselves as a Mecca of photography. Certainly what I call the black and white boys. We have Ansel Adams and the Westons that are really renowned. And as a woman photographer out there, taking a lot of pictures of flowers and gardens, and then doing the very controversial thing of moving my photographs with my Polaroids and then painting on them, I was told when I came back from Giverny with all these pictures and books and calendars, well, you know, flowers are not art. And so I said, oh, they're not? And they said, you know, your work is beautiful, but you know, beauty is passé. And so I said, you know, to me, beauty is about the divine. Beauty is about something that connects us with spirit and connects us with the heart and connects us with the spirit of place. And even though there's always difficult things going on in the world, which are really important, my work is to really ignite and connect people with the beauty, whether it's making gardens or seeing flowers or in the joyousness of spirit in different forms. And I just took pictures because I thought that maybe some of my garden-loving friends might be interested. And nobody was thinking Monet's garden was that big a deal back then. But I thought, you know what, this place is really beautiful, and I think it's really interesting, so maybe some other people will think it's interesting. And one thing led to another, and I was invited to speak at the De Young Museum and other museums, and then a publisher was there, and then my life just kind of changed different ways. But it's always about connecting to heart and following a dream. So this is the little village of Giverny, and we can see, see if that works. You can see that one like barn structure that has the skylights on it. And that was Monet's third studio where he did the big water lily paintings. But this is what the little village looks like from up on the hill. And there's the river of the Seine. River runs through right nearby Giverny, and that goes into Paris, goes to the sea. And Monet's house, which is a long, narrow stucco house, just one room wide. And here you can see those big green trees that are the head of the Grand Allée, and it goes across a railroad track. Well, it used to be a railroad track, and now it's a road where he made his water lily garden. And you can just see a little bit of the hoops of the Grand Allée to the left of the house there. And Monet, when he first moved there, in the late, around 1883 or so. And he was a painter, of course. His wife, Claudette, his first wife, who was his model and his muse, and he had two sons with, she had recently died of what they call consumption, of a flu. And his best collector, Monsieur Hochedet, who had collected a lot of Monet's paintings and a lot of the Impressionist paintings, had gone bankrupt. And so Alice Hochedet and their 6 children moved in with the Monets before they moved to Giverny. And then his wife died. So here Monet had the grief of his own wife dying and a responsibility of his former collector's wife and 6 children. So he had 8 children. And he couldn't paint with all that distraction, and he was trying to find a place where he could really settle down. And he found Giverny, and the house and the gardens, and it was a kind of what they called a bourgeoisie garden. It had a lot of trees, green trees. It had a lot of boxwood. It was all built up. with dark and a lot of apple trees, because in Normandy that's what you did. You made cider. So he, in moving there, he really set down his roots, and he really became happy, and it really became a place of great depth and inspiration. The garden became his muse. The garden was his palette. The garden was his great love. And in this garden, over a quick amount of time, he started taking out some of the overbearing trees and some of the darkness and started to grow all kinds of flowering plants. And the house has wonderful layers to it. In the new version of my book, I called it like the blooming house pattern, where instead of just having a simple stucco house, there is, first there's Virginia creeper that's growing right on the stucco, like you have on this building. And then there's arbors that have roses going across. Then there's beds of all kinds of changing flowers. And then there's the potted flowers. And then there's gravel walkways, and then there's the island beds. So there's really quite a lot of layers. And Fifi was one of the cats that lived in Giverny for many years. And if you know cats, it's all on their terms. And but she decided that this would be a good place for me to photograph her. So she walked here, she posed a few times in the middle of the iris, and then, of course, walked away. When the irises are in bloom, I feel like you just have to breathe in their beauty, because they're not there very long, and they only come once a year, and they're just so special. Monet once wrote to one of his friends, "Please come Tuesday, the irises will be perfect." And that's how they are. You visit them on a certain day, and they're at their height. I love the small pathways and the arches, and how that beckons you to walk through. Monet was working, he liked the wild and the cultivated together. He liked wild flowers that he would gather from the fields and transplant them or sow the seed. So when you have those little wildflowers like those coquelicot, they're going to be popping up wherever. And just like if you have forget-me-nots in your garden, or you have some other thing that kind of goes wild, they're going to be those little surprises. And he liked that. And today with a boat, this is the same design of the same boat that Monet's gardener used. And it's a great boat because you can actually, of course, paddle in it, but you can also stand up in it. And you can stand up and then clean the surface of the pond. It's pretty stable. And use a net and clean the grasses or the moss and put it in the boat. And then the gardeners will row over and put all that in the compost. And I've used this boat a couple of times standing up with my tripod to photograph. And one time I brought a friend with me, and she said, I never have any helpers, but she said, "Oh, Liz, give me your hand and I'll help you in." So I wasn't quite close enough to the shore, and so I was really dumb, I turned my back on my camera with my tripod. I reached my hand out to get her help, and in this just moment, the oar hit my tripod and my camera went into the pond. And that was, luckily, this is in film days, so I rewound it really quick, saved that roll of film, but I was into the camera. But it's like a lace canopy, and sometimes the local brides will come here to get their pictures taken. He knew those. If you're a cook, you know what a bit of garlic mixed with that olive oil, if you put it in here, and then you soak this, and you put these herbs, you kind of know the flavors if you're a cook. If you're a painter, you paint, like I started just to paint with Monet's 6 colors. Those colors started to speak to me at night. They would tell me, mix this one together and you'll get this one. And so Monet was fluent with his colors. So he knew, he would mark the tubes, he would put them in the same order. He knew well how to mix them. He, just like a musician like Beethoven that was losing his hearing, they could still hear it in their mind, like Monet could still see in his mind. His eyesight, I don't know if it was always this diminished, I think this was sometimes, but his good friend Clemenceau, Georges Clemenceau, who's the great statesman of France and Monet's best friend, said, and was a doctor, said, you have to, Monet, you have to get this operation. So finally he did, and he said, I'll only do one eye. I'm not going to do both eyes. And it actually took 3 times to do it. Very painful, and really painful emotionally, and frightening. But he, Monet here, in his late 70s, had made a commitment. And his commitment was his vision, literally a heart vision, that he had lived through World War I, and he said, I want to give France a gift of the beauty and the solitude and the spirit of place. My water lily garden has given me so much connection and so much resonance, so much joy, so much connection to spirit, that I want to give that to France to calm their nerves. So his idea was to have 2 round rooms or oval-shaped rooms and cover them with his water lily paintings, so that his countrymen could go in there and sit down and be surrounded by the light and the beauty as though they were in a boat in the middle of his pond. That's his gift. He said, this is my bouquet to France.